Marcus from Veritas Immigration Law. We are an immigration-only law firm located in Naples, Florida. We have some offices in Orlando and the Miami area, but we are based out of Naples, and we primarily handle E2 visas for citizens of treaty countries who are interested in applying for the E2 visa to start a new business here in the United States or to purchase an existing business. We help you go through that process and navigate the immigration system and relocate your life and your family and your business here to the United States. We also handle a lot of family immigration as well. So in this session, what we're going to do is we're going to do question and answers to some frequently asked questions that we get through consultations, through emails, and through, just a lot of questions that we get from clients and potential clients. So I'm just going to jump in, and hopefully this is going to be educational for people who are watching, people who are interested in the E2, people who are maybe going through the process or who are thinking about going through the process. This is going to be a good source of information for you to learn from other people and hear directly from an E2 visa lawyer. So let's just jump in. Okay, the first question says, we are Canadian citizens and applied for a change of status from TD to E2. Our business is a franchise and we invested about $120,000. As per our agreement, we shouldn't operate the business until we get approved for E2. However, USCIS requested that we demonstrate current business activities conducted by the enterprise. I am not sure how to address this. Could you provide some recommendations or suggestions? Really appreciate your support and kind reply. Okay. So this is something that I don't typically recommend people do, which is apply for a change of status in connection with an E2. Sometimes you can't help it and you need to do that. Anyways, I can talk about that in a separate video, why we don't really recommend the change of status. But anyways, it sounds like you applied for the E2 and USCIS is requesting some additional information. So it sounds to me like you got a request for evidence. I think that this is a good time for you to probably call up an immigration attorney and have them jump in. Because if you did receive an RFE or a request for evidence asking for more information, this is basically like your one shot to respond. And if you don't respond sufficiently to the RFE, you're going to get denied. So this is a really critical point for you, and I think this is a good time for a lawyer to jump in. But to answer your question, you're correct to say that you shouldn't operate the business until you get approved for the E2. So you've invested the $120,000, which I'm guessing is sitting in escrow, and it's just contingent upon the approval of your E2, which is fine. A lot of people do that. And your question is, how am I supposed to prove that the business is operating if I'm not able to, run it? And the way that you do this, I think, is by a lot of just submitting a lot of financial records. So the company's tax returns, their financial reports, their profit loss statements, their payroll records. These are the kind of things that are going to prove that the business is operating, that it's real, right? So this is one of the really important requirements for an E2 visa, is you've got to prove the business is not marginal, that it's real, and that it's operating. That it's producing income, it's got employees, things like that. This should be fairly easy to do as long as you can get those records. So I'm just going to stop there, but that's kind of just generally speaking, that's how you would want to address it. Those are the types of things that prove that the current business activities. Okay, I think that's all. Let's go on to the next one. Hello, I'm planning to buy a business in Texas. I'm already working at high position in Canada, and I'm looking to invest and set up a business in Texas, and planning to return back to continue my work for now. Is it possible to do so while visiting back and forth US on E2 visa to work on business and also working in California? in Canada. As for now, I don't want to quit my job expecting promotion soon. Any advice shared will be appreciated. Thank you for your time. Let me see here. So right now you're working at a high position in Canada and you're looking to invest and apply for an E2 visa, but you don't want to quit your job because you're expecting a promotion. So, I mean, I think you got to do one thing or the other. Um, I don't think you're going to be able to do both. And there's a couple different things going on here. So, so here's the first thing. If you're able to start a business in Texas, but still be up in Canada and run the business, then there's really no need for the Department of State to give you an E2 visa because you don't really need to be in the United States. You can just be, sounds like you could just be doing this remotely. And so there's really no strong connection to the United States. And for that reason, I don't think that that would be a good case for an E2 visa. The other thing is just like on a human level. I mean, if you're doing two different jobs, I mean, starting a business is hard. And if you're on the verge of a promotion in a job that you like, you're going to have to be committed to that job. So being committed to two important things like that is difficult. And I just don't think that this is the right time for you to apply for an E2. I'm not saying that you can't invest and set up a business in Texas, but unless you're planning to move and relocate yourself to the United States and the business needs you to be here, then I don't think that E2 is. I just don't think it's the right time. So you're kind of trying to straddle two different options, and I think you just got to choose one or the other. If you want to go for the E2, you can do it, but I would just you got to commit to it, and there's got to be a reason for you to be in the United States. Okay, let's go to the next one. Good day, I'm new to E2 visa. Should I buy a business and operate remotely before applying for the E2 visa? um, my instinct, I get this question a lot, and my instinctual answer to this generally is no. And the reason for that is kind of what I said just before this. Is that if you don't need to be here in the United States, then it's not very likely that an officer in the embassy is going to approve you for an E2 visa. If you can just operate the business remotely, they don't really see the purpose of giving you a visa to come here if you don't need to be here. Um, so if you can manage and direct the business from outside the country, I think it's probably not very likely that you are going to get approved for an E2 visa. That being said, if you can do that, if you're doing that just on a very temporary basis, I think it's okay. But your plan and your intent needs to be in the United States, that you need to be here to manage the business. Um, this kind of leads into another question that a lot of people have. Is there a lot of people come to me and they ask, how am I supposed to get the business operational and running if I don't have a visa to come to the United States? And that's a really good question. And what a lot of people do is, they do have a visa or an ESTA that allows them to come to the United States, like a visitor visa. And they'll use that to come here to kind of explore business opportunities. Maybe they'll incorporate a business while they're here and just kind of get it going in anticipation of applying for an E2 visa. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Um, but if your business is set up in such a way, like this person is suggesting, where uh, you can just operate it remotely, then I don't think that that's a very approvable case for an E2 visa. Of course, every situation is different, and we just need to go through your circumstances. But just kind of generally speaking, uh, the ability to operate your business remotely is not a very good factor in terms of uh, getting the E2 visa. I don't think. Hello, I have a question. If my fiance is in the US on E2 and we get married, I am a US citizen. While filing for his adjustment of status to get green card, can he continue to work and travel out of the US? That's a good question. Um, so generally the answer is no. Once you apply for an adjustment of status to permanent residence, you can't leave the United States while those petitions are pending, or you will abandon them and you'll lose all your filing fees and you'll have to start all over again. The only real exception to that is if you apply for what's called a travel document, otherwise known as advanced parole. So when you are sending in those applications for the adjustment of status, you want to make sure that you apply for an advanced parole document that will allow you to depart and re-enter the United States in case you do need to leave. But if you do leave the United States without that, you're probably going to abandon your petitions. Hello, I have a question. If someone has the E2 and is filing an adjustment of status to a green card through marriage, and how is the process? This, so there's a lot to this. I could spend 20, 30 minutes talking about the adjustment of status process. There's kind of a lot to it. It's a very common way to get your green card, and the USCIS policy on E2 on an E2 holder adjusting their status is pretty clear. Um, that it's totally fine and it's permitted. So there's no problem with it, but there's just a lot to it, and it's I think it's better addressed in kind of like a separate video because it'll just take up too much time. But it's a legitimate process to go through. It requires the concurrent filing of multiple different applications. Um, and the process generally is going to take 10 to 13 months to conclude until the person has their green card. But there's kind of a lot of steps along the way and a lot to it. So I'm just going to kind of skip through this, and you can review some of our other content to learn more about that if you want. Okay, can I use Regis to get a physical address so that I can open a bank account prior to buying a business? Yes, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So Regis is like a virtual office space. So I mean, if you don't have a house or an apartment or something that you can use, then I think Regis is a good option for you to get like a formal business address that you can use to get mail, and yeah, if you need it to open a bank account, that that's a good use of a Regis membership. E2 visa admin process for over 2 months, and in this time, the status online was refused. That's normal. We asked to withdraw the passport this Monday, and today we saw that the status changed from refused to approved to issued. Does this really mean that has been issued, or is just from the fact that we asked for passports? We do not know what to believe. Um, okay, so this is something that people screw up a lot. First, it's kind of dumb, but the Department of State, when they put something into administrative processing, which is basically just a procedure that they use if they're trying to collect more information, maybe if they're asking you for more documents, or if the officer thinks they need to review something a little more, they'll put your application into administrative processing. And while it's in administrative processing, the status that you will see on your visa is called refused. And a lot of people get freaked out when they see this because they think it means denied. And that's not what that's, usually not what it means. So it sounds like this person thought that refused meant denied. So I don't know why you went to ask to withdraw your passport, if it's because you thought you were denied or if you had some other reason that you needed your passport. Um, but it kind of sounds like you might have just assumed that it was denied, and so you went to go and ask for your passport. And thankfully, it wasn't denied. It was approved and issued. So um, yeah, I think there's just a little bit of confusion around that administrative processing and that refusal. Sounds like you just thought it was denied, but it wasn't. So I'm happy for you that your visa got issued. But this things like this can actually lead to disasters because um, you thankfully your visa just got approved and issued. But if you did, sometimes people act on assumptions and then they make mistakes based on those assumptions. So that's why it's good when you're going through these embassy procedures to at least have a lawyer advising you through these things so that you don't make a mistake. But it worked out for this person, and I'm glad. Um, so that's all. If I successfully change my status from B1 to E2 during my US visit, my dependents, spouse and children, will apply for E2 dependents visa from Pakistan. My question is, will they surely get the E2 dependents visa or can they get refusal too? Because I won't be able to afford their refusal as I can't come back and they can't come to US in this situation. Your guidance in this regard will be highly appreciated. Thanks. This is a really good question. Um, so let me just say a couple things. The first, the first thing you're asking is, will they surely get the E2 dependence visa? Um, there's no guarantee with this stuff. So, we're optimistic. We do these a lot, and as long as you get approved, we should be able to get your dependents approved as well. But the real question here is if the principal E2 holder is applying for a change of status and not a visa, can his dependents apply for a visa? And this question it's a really good question, and it's actually addressed in the Foreign Affairs Manual. Um, I should pull up the citation here, but I don't have it pulled up. Um, but the answer is yes. So if you successfully change your status, you get your approval letter and your new I-94, your dependents can go ahead and apply for the E2 visa from the embassy in Pakistan. That's fine and that's allowed under the Foreign Affairs Manual. That's a really good question. Hello there. I was planning on applying for an E2 visa. My situation is the following one. I have an LLC in the US, which only trades with my company in Spain. I have not put in any capital in the LLC. All the money it has, it's from profits it's made. The LLC has around 40,000 in the bank made from profits. I own 100% of it. Can this model be used for E2 visa? I'm asking since I've never put money out of my personal pocket. Thanks. Interesting. This almost sounds more like an E1 visa because it sounds like you're trading some kind of commodity back and forth between the U.S. and Spain. I'm not sure what that is, but there's some kind of exchange of goods between the U.S. and Spain here. And I don't know what the volume of your trade is, but this almost sounds more like a treaty trader visa or a treaty trader situation than a treaty investor. But you are asking about the E2 visa, and um, there's a so as it stands right now, this is not a good setup for an E2 visa because as you mentioned in the letter here, you haven't invested any money, and so there's really nothing at risk. So that's the first problem you have. The second problem is, um, well, let me just say this. You've got 40,000 in the bank, which is great. So one thing that you probably could do is withdraw. If you really wanted to do an E2 visa, depending on what your business is, um, you could potentially withdraw that $40,000 from your LLC and just like reinvest it into like the business or into like maybe a new business. Um, Depending on what your business is, you might or you might not need a little bit more than that. But that's maybe a way to use that money. So as it stands right now, you haven't invested that money, as you said. So the regulations require a substantial investment. It also requires the funds to be at risk. So you've got, a business that's operating and producing income, which is awesome. Um, but you haven't satisfy the investment element of the E2 visa. So that needs to be done, and you can potentially do that because you do have $40,000. So that would be something we would need to talk about a little bit more carefully, but there's potential there. But as it is right now, it's not going to work for an E2 visa. Can I successfully get an E2 visa with Amazon FBA business? I think so. Yeah, people have done this before. We've done this. I've seen this before. Um, I don't recommend that, when you're setting up your business and you're applying for it, don't call it an Amazon FBA business. You want to kind of package it as something else. Um, One of the kind of major hurdles with doing this type of business model is it's very um, like teleworking type of stuff. Like you can do this, you don't need to be in the US to do an Amazon FBA business. So the key is you need to um, you need to um, create a connection to the United States. So why do you need to be in the United States? Um, you're going to have to demonstrate that you have a bunch of inventory here, sitting in an office or a warehouse or something, where you have like a physical space here in the country to create a connection with. Otherwise, it just kind of looks like a remote business, and that's just not a great setup for an E2 visa. But this can work. It does require some careful, planning and review of your business plan. But that's kind of as I see it, the major issue here is going to be your connection to the United States, right? So if I'm like the consular officer interviewing you, I'm going to wonder why do you need to be in the United States to do this? So that's one hurdle that you would need to figure out. Okay, hi Marcus. What is UK-based applying for an E2 visa? If you'd be so kind to let me know your process wait times, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much in advance. Right now in the UK, I would say it's about a 4 to 5 month wait for your interview. So you would submit your documents, and then I think you'd probably get an interview in about 4 to 5 months based on my most recent experience. I have an LLC and bought a store using loan against my name. My friend is a partner in LLC, but no loan against his name. Can he invest a substantial amount of 130 to 150,000 with 51% partnership and apply for E2 visa? Thank you in advance. Um, Sounds good. I don't know what the business is, but I think that's a pretty strong investment for most businesses. It says you bought a store. I don't know what kind of store that is, but I think that's that's a pretty strong investment, I think. Um, I don't know what your status is though. If you're an E2 visa holder, for example, then you would no longer have 50% ownership. Um, maybe you're a U.S. citizen, or maybe you're not an E2 visa holder. So, in that case, that would be fine. If you're like a U.S. citizen and he's just purchasing that much of your business so that he can apply for an E2 visa, I think that that's fine. I would just, if I was talking to you on the phone or something, I would have a lot more questions and that I would want to flush out. But I think that looks okay. Hello, I will be buying a gas station and convenience store. The owner is ready to sell 55% of shares to me, and we won't change the name of my LLC. My question is, do we need any valuation report? We have inventory report for the closing day of business. Will that work, or we need any document for buying price consideration? Thank you in advance. I think yes. I think a valuation report is probably important because remember, we have to show that you're investing a substantial that you're investing substantial capital. And so one of the ways that you know that you're doing that is by knowing what the fair market value of the business is. So a valuation report would give you that. And so I think that's important. Yeah, I do think that you need that, and that's something that we would want to include in your E2 visa application. If you have an E2 visa, are you able to apply for a green card, and what is the process? Common question. There's a few different ways that a person on an E2 visa can get a green card. Um, you may already know that the E2 visa is not a direct path to a green card, so you have to find another way. And the most common ways are through an adjustment of status. If you have a U.S. citizen relative, spouse or child, or a parent, maybe. Probably not a parent. It'd probably have to be a spouse or a child. And then the other common way is what's called an EB2, National Interest Waiver Green Card. Those are the two most common ways for people to apply for a green card, or to go from an E2 visa to a green card. Let's see, is that the last one? Yep, that's the last one. Okay, so that's all we have for now. We're going to, do another session later on, but I'm going to jump off this call and I'll talk to you guys later. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. You can send me an email. Just go to our website. You should be able to find my email and our phone number. And I'm happy to meet with anybody if you have questions about the E2 visa or about any family immigration process you may be going through. Okay, thanks guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye.